Namaskar. Hello to everybody. And welcome to the third evening of this series of 5 conversations. This has been organized by Art Vision in collaboration with India Habitat Center. And it is in celebration of the 25th anniversary of Art Vision. Art Vision was founded in 1996 by a group of artists belonging to different disciplines like dance, art, literature, cinema, theater. And continuing on these premises, we are celebrating the 25th year with an event which is called Dance Across Genres, where experts in different disciplines will share their talk to us. Tonight is the third evening, and it is dance and visual arts. It's when we dance, we paint figures in the air. When we choreograph, we design movements in the space. Among all the arts, dance is certainly the most antique. Without knowing dance, how the Silpakars could have carved sculptures around the walls of the temples with such precise details of hasta mudra and feet positions. Texts like Silpa Shastra give indications regarding diagrams, lines, and proportions, but finally is only the dancing body and its designs in space which brings those diagrams to life and inspires painters and sculptors to try to capture them. So tonight we have with us a very renowned expert in visual art, is Alka Pande, Dr. Alka Pande. She is an art historian who taught Indian art and aesthetic at Punjab University for more than 10 years. Her major fields of interest are gender identity and sexuality and traditional arts. Dr. Pande, under the aegis of the Charles Wallace Indian Trust, conducted postdoctoral research in critical art theory at Goldsmith University of London. She has been awarded the Knight of the Order of Arts and Letters by the French government for her significant contribution in the field of art and literature. The Australian India Council Special Award for her contribution to Indian art, and the L'Oréal Paris Femina Women under Design and Art. Currently, Dr. Pande is a consultant, art advisor, and curator of the Visual Arts Gallery and the India Habitat Center in New Delhi.
Thank you, Ileana, for the wonderful introduction, and thank you very much for collaborating with us here at the India Habitat Center in celebrating your very iconic 25 years Silver Jubilee celebrations of Art Vision. Let me also congratulate you on behalf of the Visual Arts Gallery, India Habitat Center, and all of us that you have so consistently worked with such dedication and perseverance in setting up and running your art center in Bhubaneswar. Your commitment to the arts and to your practice of dance is truly commendable. Many, many congratulations. And I hope you have many, many wonderful years ahead to continue in your endeavor to push the boundaries of dance and art. When you came with the suggestion of doing a collaboration, I love the idea of what you had suggested, dance across genres. And this is truly interesting, and your curation of inviting a cross-section of people from Alistair, Deirdre, Julia, Parvati, and me to bring our own understanding and interpretation of dance through our own practices was very, very attractive. And for me in particular, because I truly believe in my pursuit of Indian art and heritage, that there is such a interdisciplinary connection between all the arts. No art really grows or flowers in a silo. Dance cannot be de-linked to poetry, as poetry cannot be de-linked to music, as music cannot be de-linked to abstraction, which we also
Sorry, again the voice is gone now.
paint lines. The dancer uses the body in geometric forms, in curvilinear forms, in static forms, and me being a practitioner of dance many, many years ago in another life, when I was much younger and more nubile, learned Bharatanatyam from Yamini Krishnamurti and learned exactly how the control of the body can also, bring a certain kind of gravitas to, to the form. And that form, the gravitas of a physical bodily form, can also be seen in the gravitas of an artist, of a painter, of a sculptor using materials to make lines. I want to go back to the very beginning. I want to go back to the very beginning of thought. I want to go back to the very beginnings of how, for us, mankind started to paint, to draw, and to dance. Now, we don't know what really came first. Did the line come first, or did the dancing come first? Because when we look at the deep caves, whether it is Bhimbetka, whether it is the caves in Altamira in Spain, we see a lot of drawings which are done. And these drawings are all line-based drawings. And many of these line-based drawings represent dance. Is it magic? Is it fertility? Is it the dance for the gods? Is it dancing for the elements? Studies are still carrying on, but definitely we are free to assume and understand that it has a lot to do with fertility, with magic, with fantasy, with our own fears sometimes, because the paintings of the caves show hunting scenes. So is it all about power? Is it about beauty? Is it about aesthetics? But today, I really want to begin first with our Shilpa Shastras. I want to also lean heavily on an essay, on a book which I find very, very interesting for me, is called The Circle and the Square by one of India's leading scholars on Indian art and aesthetics, with the recently passed Kapila Vatsayan, who had also footprinted a lot of what we call Indian arts and aesthetics. While Dr. Vatsayan was a trained dancer, she was also a trained art historian. And for today's talk, I thought that taking this particular title of one of her books, The Circle and Square, would be an interesting way for me to express my own absorptions and concerns and engagements with dance, music, sculpture, and painting. So I go back to the very early times when we say that dance has been a subject explored by many of the world's most respected artists. This form of expression has played a very, very important role in human life for thousands of years. From early participatory dance to performance dance as we know today. I want to go back to our Shilpa Shastras. I'm not even going back to the Natya Shastra yet. Natya Shastra will feature later as we go along in my presentation. But I want to go back to the Shilpa Shastras, which were written somewhere around anywhere from the 5th to the 7th century of the Common Era. As you know, in Indian art, most of our texts, most of our knowledge is really received wisdom. It is only in the, say, from the time of the 4th century of the Common Era, where the Natya Veda or the Natya Shastra, which is also known as the 5th Veda, was actually inscribed by Bharat, known as Bharat Muni, who wrote the Natya Shastra. The Shilpa Shastras were also being kind of collated and codified, and like many things of traditional Indian art, we do not really know exactly who was an author, was it a collective voice. Of course, we do know people who collated the wisdom, the Indic wisdom of our forefathers and our ancestors. So going back to the Shilpa Shastras, I want to mention that the motive which was taken, or how the body of a human being was reduced to vertical and horizontal lines. And from vertical and horizontal lines, what do you get? You get the square and the circle. The measure was conditioned by the medium of expression, the standing man with his arms outstretched, rather upstretched, recalling the Vedic description, he is as broad as he is high. With this square frame and the space of a circle, a whole cosmos is contained, equating again the different parts of his or her limbs and organs with different lines and intersections on one plane and the different elements of the universe on the other. In fact, I'm going to go to Dan Brown's book when he did the whole thing of the Da Vinci Code, and the cover of his book was Leonardo da Vinci's Vitruvian Man, where he's standing, and there too, if you look at the lines, it's the circle and the square. I have some images actually, which I'd like to now share with you when I start a little bit, and I want to show you how I want to, lay out the course of my talk, and I wanted to call it Dancing with the Line, Dance and Visual Arts. See, this is the way I wanted to show you some sculptures which, if you see, these are temple sculptures and I will show them to you by and by. But I want to show you how the exploration of the line is happening, how the rekha, we call it the rekha. You can see in the thicker lines, charcoal lines, you see how the body can be seen through lines. You see the circle and the square in the background. This is a seated image. This is again a rigorously conceived plan. I'm showing you more the structure and the grid. First to you, here is a dancer in motion. This is Bharatanatyam posture. And what you see here in these 8 figures is how when the body moves, how the body is moving in different very clear-cut lines. Here are the different positions of the legs. This is a lovely, lovely image of the Vishnu Trivikarma, and here you see how the 2 legs of Vishnu are spread, and on the right hand side here you are seeing how the lines of both the 8-armed Vishnu can be seen. Now, of course, this is the most important figure, which and the most, how should I say, the popular figure in Indian art, which you see maximum, who has been represented by painters, particularly by sculptors, and of course this has become a household name thanks to the Chola bronzes. This is the image of Nataraj, Shiva as the Lord of Dance, which is Shiva Nataraj. The earlier image, of course, you had seen also could be with Vishnu Trivikarma. There's also the image which is also known as the Bhujangatrasita Karna pose, which is known literally frightened by a snake, where, let me quick, yeah, where you see the left leg is held right across the body. This is just to show you a similarity between the 2 poses. Now let me go back to the Nataraj pose. Now the study of iconography, I'm going to jump here to the study of iconography, and what you see, the study of iconography, pioneers like Sri Aurobindo, Anand Kumaraswamy, and Havel were at pains to talk about in great measure. They were talking, they were actually, I don't know why they did it, but I suppose it was required to make it more universal. They were defending the multiple heads and arms of Indian images, and also the interpretation and significance in terms of the concepts of formlessness, which is arupa, even going beyond the form to pararupa, to vyakta, which is full form, and avyakta, which is devoid of form. But here, what I want to show you is in the image. I'm just trying to see if we have a Nataraj image later. Let me just see. I don't think I have a Nataraj image. Okay. Now I'm going to just go back to the line image of the Nataraj to just tell you, we look at all these lovely images at leisure. Now here, there are 5 most important elements which talk of the Panchakriya or the 5 acts of Nataraj. One of them is Srishti or creation, where if you see the left rear arm carries the hourglass shaped Damaru, the vibrations of which creates the universe. Some conflate this with the Big Bang theory of cosmic creation. The second kriya is that of samhara or destruction, where the raised rare right hand carries the fire that atrophies matter to a formless state only for regeneration. In that sense, it is the fire of transformation, not destruction. This implies constant change, echoing the Buddhist precept of there's no being, only becoming. Then there is Srishti, or maintenance or protection. The open palm of the forehand indicates an assurance. There is nothing to fear about constant cosmic overhaul. Change is normal. Then we have here a tirobhava or concealment, where the hidden lower left palm pointing downwards says that Shiva is the creator of Maya, illusion, or the veil of ignorance. Then we have Anugraha or blessing or liberation, where the raised left foot combined with the closed hand signifies the option available before the seeker. Moksha or liberation from ignorance and by implication from the cycle of birth and death. Then here, of course, because it's more of a line drawing, but in an image which you see in sculpture, in stone, or in the Chola bronzes, you have the Muyalaka or Apasmara, which is the dwarf demon at Nataraja's feet, which represents the evils of ignorance and ego to be trampled upon. The ego has to be trampled upon, and that is what Muyalaka or Apasmara has to be trampled upon, which Shiv is shown to trampling to rise to a higher plane of self-actualization. And then finally, as you see, the circle of fire, the frame around Nataraj is Maya or illusion as experienced through a cyclical phenomenon of birth and death. Now, what we will see as I go along, I will show you some of the relief work, which through literally I'm taking you through a time machine of Indian art. You see the relief work in the Udaygiri caves. You see the boar avatar holding the Prithvi on his boar Vishnu. Look at the way the thigh is placed. You can see that these are almost looking like lines which are frozen in time, which become sculptures. This is a dancing figure, relief work on an Udaygiri cave. Ajanta, beautiful. The dancing figures, the central figure could almost look like an Odishi dancer or an Odissi dancer, as we call them now. This is the great Brihadeshwara temple, a yogini temple built in the area of Thanjavur in the 11th century before the Common Era. Just have a look, just see these beautiful, dynamic, frozen movements in time in the external facades of temple. Of course, Hoysala art in Karnataka, which is so overly ornamented, 12th century of the Common Era, which when you look at them again, these are beautiful apsaras which are dancing on the external facades. You see a different kind of dancing figures in the temples in Konark, but all of them you can make out very clearly where the line is being shown, where the human figuration is being explored by sculptors and painters. I'm just showing you some. That was Hoysala. Now I'm moving down to Andhra Pradesh, to the Lipakshi temple, where again you are seeing how the dancer is using his body as a brush, drawing very, very strong lines. This is absolutely stunning. These are the movements, the different karanas of dance on pillars. In fact, many of the dance, classical dances, whether it is Urisi dance, whether it is Bharatanatyam, whether it is Mohiniyattam, many of them are kind of being recreated through the different aspects of dance which are shown in different Natya mandirs of various temples, traditional temples in India. This is again dancing and praying figures painted at the Lipakshi temple. I'm now moving up north to Himachal Pradesh, and I'm going to show you a similar kind of a circle of dance which is being done by Matis much in almost 100 years later. Just keep this in mind when you're looking at these figures. This is a beautiful story of Bhasmasura, who is being, where Vishnu in the form of Mohini is, killing or destroying the demon Bhasmasura in the form, so that he touches his head and he's completely destroyed. That was the only way he could die. And Shiva, from behind, is making sure that the Bhasmasura will self-destroy himself. I'm going to skip through this. Here are these Patachitras, which you see much later, popular art from the Kali Ghat paintings in the Kali temple in Kolkata in West Bengal. And I'm jumping on to M.F. Hussain, one of our most celebrated modernists, who really enjoyed painting dancers. He also made a movie called Gajagamini Meenakshi, which was really beautiful, where he took one of our most beautiful actresses, Madhuri Dixit, to be the protagonist of his film, and how he used the body to show how it becomes the house which uses art completely, where the human body starts painting with its own body. This is another dancing Ganesh made by M.F. Hussain. And now I'm showing you some art to make it more universal. William Blake's poetry, which is where you see Oberon, Titania, and Puck with fairies dancing. William Blake this is his interpretation. This is Maurice Toulouse-Lautrec, the dancers at the Moulin Rouge, 19th century. This is Edward Degas, who painted a lot of dancers too. This is, of course, Dufy, the Le Bal Populaire, the local dance, 20th century. And this is what I was saying, Henri Matisse again, 20th century, which was very similar in composition to the Gulair paintings of Himachal Pradesh. And of course, Royal Liechtenstein, we're coming into the 20th century, the artist studio, the dance. Keith Haring, 20th century, look at the way he has made it more graphic, showing the dancers. Now, here I am, so sorry, the spelling of Shivaji is wrong, but here is a Mohiniyattam performance by the daughter of Bharati Shivaji, which you can see here. Then Birju Maharaj, one of the greatest masters, dancing, and the lines of his body being so very, very clear in this contemporary dance, where the body is used in a more free-flowing manner, less structured, less formal. Akram Khan. And then I want to come to Chandralekha. She, in fact, used her body very, very much in a geometric manner, where line was very, very predominant. She was completely unapologetic about the way she broke the form of Bharatanatyam and brought in a different kind of physicality and sexuality in her dance. In fact, Chandralekha brought in yoga and Kalairi Payatu into dance, which was very, very revolutionary in her time. But now what we see is in changing choreographies. Of course, she was very avant-garde in her time. She was very revolutionary. But now we see a lot of dancers borrowing heavily from different aspects of even the martial arts and bringing it into their own choreographies. In fact, she she went beyond prettiness of piety. In fact, she hilariously called it a doggification of conventional Bharatanatyam and, moved in various territories where very, very formal, classically trained dancers did not, because they thought it was really disrespecting the dance form. But creativity, in my opinion, has no boundaries, and pushing the envelope of creativity sometimes means that you break the form. It is like how Tayyab Mehta broke the form in painting when he brought in a different diagonality and cutting the form, particularly in a series called the Mahishmardini. I now want to end actually with a person who trained with Chandralekha, the most beautiful, talented, extraordinary Tishani Doshi, who is here performing her book, Girls Are Coming Out of the Woods. She was a disciple of Chandralekha, but she moved even beyond. She's a poet, she's a writer, she's a yoga practitioner, and has been performing Chandralekha's choreography of Sharira for 15 years. She has been performing, this was the last of Chandralekha's choreography, Sharira, and she engages, Tishani engages with Sharira in Chandralekha's presence and absence. And she has internalized a world of ideas, emotions, people, and relationships through the piece. So, for me, Tishani's Sharira is really a coming together of all my ideas, and that is why I chose this particular kind of piece to show you, because it also shows an interdisciplinary between the different genres of dance. It brings in yoga, it brings in a different way of looking at the body, using both the traditional, the modern, and the contemporary. And this is actually where we are in India. Contemporary India is not just one India, it is many, many Indias. And there is no one particular way of thinking, whether it is in dance, it is in music. And that is why I love the idea of Ileana when she said dance across genres. And this is what I have really enjoyed. And I truly enjoyed looking or re-looking at the various sculptures, the paintings which were there, very much part of our heritage, bringing it to modern artists like M.F. Hussain, to Birju Maharaj, and ending with the very contemporary, with the very interdisciplinary, with the transdisciplinary, and crossing many boundaries of space, time, and body, Tishani Joshi. Thank you. Thank you for your patience. And I want to thank Ileana once again for doing this wonderful interdisciplinary dialogue on dance.
Thank you so much, Alka. Really, you have brought us from the very ancient time, and you said that you went to to go back and back, and then you have been able within half an hour to cross so much space and so much time, and to give so many shapes and images in front of our eyes. Well, so many inputs were there in your talk. Suddenly, since you started from the lines, then I suddenly thought, what would be the best way of writing dance? Writing dance means to develop a writing system of a composition, of a choreography, of a dance. Because many attempts are there. Of course, in the West, we know that the Laban system, and many have tried to, but for us, for Indian dance, still a proper system is not there. And I remember that my guru, Guruji Padma Vibhushan Akhilucharan Mohapatra, he tried to draw, to write down his composition, and it was a drawing, and it was those miniature poses just drawn in all the details for each bit of the tala. And of course, it's a very lengthy process. But again, it was going back to the sculpture, to the poses, to the curve of the body, and so utilizing this concept of the fact that the lines are basic for the dancer and for the sculpture and for the painting. So maybe one could utilize it also for a system of writing dance. Well, mine is not much of a question. It was just one of the consideration, one of the thoughts that came by listening to you. And then, of course, I enjoyed the reference to M.F. Hussain, where I had the privilege to choreograph one of the sequence of the Meenakshi, A Tale of Three Cities. And I could see how this great artist was enjoying like a child while we were shooting the dance scenes in the middle of the night under the rain. And he was just, he was not like a director of a film. He was just a child enjoying like anything, looking at the dancer and all the splashing of the rain around, and the movement. And really, it was great to see him in that role of as a spectator more than a film director. So now I don't know if there are okay, Asha is commenting. I wonder if you, wonderful as always, Alka. I wonder if you would like to say something about the Ragini Rasa and miniatures that comes out of lines, but lines of words. Ragini Rasa and miniatures that comes out of lines, but lines of words.
Okay, I'll take that, Ileana.
Okay.
Thank you so much for your inputs as well, and thank you so much for commenting on the presentation. And I'm glad to know that working with a visual artist as a dancer and choreographing, I'm sure there must have been wonderful energies between you and Hussain Sahab, because he himself was a man of great performance. He actually performed while he painted. He was a great performer. Thank you for your question, Arshia. It's very, very interesting. And of course, the different ragamalas which have been done, particularly by the Rajasthani miniature artists and the artists of the Kangra Kalam, this has been quite a favorite, how should I say, it's almost like a book illustration. The Raga Ragini, music, poetry, rasa have always been the engagement of traditional artists in India. Because as I said, going back to the Natya Shastra, traditional art in India has always been a performer was a dancer was a poet, a poet could also be a sculptor, could also be a painter. You know, it's the story of, it takes me also back to the story of Vajra and in the Markandeya Puran of the Vishnu Dharmottar Puran, where Vajra goes to the Rishi and says, "Oh Master, teach me the art of painting." To which he says, "Do you know the art of sculpture?" To which he says, "No, Master, teach me the art of sculpture." To which he says, "Do you know the art of dance?" To which he says, "Oh Master, teach me the art of dance." He said, "But then do you know the art of music? Because that is the most abstract of it all." So if you see, even in the story of the Markandeya Puran, what do you see? That there is such a deep kind of interrelationship between dance, music, poetry, sculpture. So going back to your question, Arshia, of line in words and words in line, it is almost kind of interchangeable. So when the traditional artist looked or understood the Raga Ragini, or looked at the way he represented, say for example, the Todi Ragini, or he looked at the different Naikas, whether it is the Abhisarika Naika going into the dark, where she battles everything, going to meet her lover, whether there are serpents or no serpents. So all these things are kind of what did the painter actually do? He or they were primarily he's at that point, but the painter, we know only by name of he's at that time, went into a deep meditation and also read the texts, whatever texts they were illustrating. Suppose they were illustrating the Mewadi Ragamala. So in that, the Mewadi artist read the text. What did each rag convey to him? What was his feeling at that point? And then he kind of drew the painting, and therefore the lines emerged out of him ingesting something, digesting it, and then producing something which came both from his mind and his hand. And then, in fact, that's what they say, it is a Devakala. All these arts were Devakalas, whether it was a dancer, whether it was a Gotipua in the temple, whether in Odisha, or whether it was a Devadasi who was performing for even the people who were constructing the Brihadeshwara temple for Shiva. What were they doing? They were actually making an offering to the divine. So these were all Devakalas. As the painter himself was painting the Ragini, what was the various rasas which came into it? So in the Natya Shastra, where the rasa theory is first expounded, it actually centered around the 8 rasas there. Finally, the last rasa was added much later in the 17th century by Abhinav Gupta, which was the Shanta rasa. But basically, emotions, the theory of emotions, the structure of making the body according to the canons which were laid down in the Shilpa Shastras, the icons which were there's a whole study of iconography. So all these things came together, and finally, according to the Shad Anga, where it is the 6 forms of the human body, 1 head, 2 arms, 1 torso, and 2 legs. So the Shad Anga, that became very important. Again, the human figure becomes very important, where you have Varnika Bhangam, you have Lavanya, you have verisimilitude. All these things came together to make a piece of art. So the translation from dance to painting and from painting into dance was quite interchangeable. So that is how I would express lines of words and words of lines and rasa. Does that answer what you wanted, Arshia? Uh, is that fine? I mean, that's the way I look at it. Am I able to communicate my...
maybe they could unmute Arsha mic from the...
Okay.
Okay, it's not. That today dancers good paintings.
Thank you so much. I just want to thank you, Alka, for a very, very exhaustive answer. Thanks a lot. It is really remarkable how to flesh out dance today, dance choreographies, compositions, new works. Dancers are going back to the sculptures, going back to the paintings, and getting their inspiration from there. So you see, it was linked in the past and it continues to be linked together. And it's almost magical how the dance emerges inspired by the artwork. So thank you very much. And Ileana, thanks a lot. This is amazing.
See, it's actually what we know is that in the 50s of the last centuries, when dance in Orissa, for example, it was almost gone and disappeared. These few entrepreneurs, the gurus, the pioneers, who were in theater, who were self-made, not yet dancer, but because they had to take from so many sources here and there, it was all scattered. So the temples were actually the textbook. So all of them, they really, in their experiences, they keep on telling that they had to go back and study this culture. It was like an open textbook with the frozen poses. This is incredible because I live in the middle of this temple. So sometimes I think actually the poses, the Alasakanya poses, some of them are nartaki, are dance poses, but most of them are just one lady is looking at the mirror, the other is talking at the parrots, the other one is have the baby in her hands, the other one is tying the ankle. So they are just doing actions, the daily action, but so gracefully, and so elegantly, and that we see in that dance poses. But actually, who were these ladies? Who, I mean, I ask myself, I wonder from where they were all in the imagination of the sculptor, or they were, who were these ladies at that point in the 6th, 7th century, 8th century, when this temple started to come up. So it's a mystery. I mean, these beautiful ladies within this, that, as I said, maybe they were not dancing, but their poses, they were like dance poses. So this is, yeah. I don't know if there is any other question.
I have one thing I want to say, and I don't know whether you can tell me to shut up because I'm hogging up all the time. But so
no, Arsha, you were expected. tell.
Okay. So very nice that we are bringing up this thing about linkages between contemporary practice of traditional dance and the linkages with sculpture and painting. And you've cited the example of Odissi, which really is the best example to illustrate this point. But that's probably the best known example as well. There is another example that comes to mind, and I would like to say it. And Alka, I would urge you to see if you could explore something in this direction also. So there is a temple in Warangal. Today, modern day Telangana, the Ramappa temple. I think it has either just got the World Heritage Site status, or it's already been inscribed, or is in the process of being inscribed. And there, every 1,000 pillars carried sculptures of this dance, which today we know as Perini. And there is reference to Perini in some texts. But it was a dead dance. It had died out, like Lupt ho gaya and all that, being vulnerable to the ravages of time. And it is only by looking at these sculptures and the few references that you find in text, I think particularly what is, do you remember the name? Natya Tarangini or something like that, its name is.
Yeah.
You know which one I'm talking about. It'll come back to me. But
Perini expert. Yeah.
dance was reconstructed. Now, what we know is that the moments of pause in the dance, and it's literally a pause-free dance. It's one of those breathless kind of dances. But if you were to take quick pictures, each picture matches to one of the sculptural images. But we don't know whether the dance was really like that or not. So a lot of imagination is used by contemporary people also to put together. While you talk about the imagination of who were these women, the question is that were these men dancing what we today know as Perini is the question. But the link is the same. It's sculptures coming to life to revive a dance that was finished. Yeah, that's my story.
Because basically the poses are frozen. So you have to, from one pose to another, you build up the dance.
You have to create that. One pose to the other portion is created. The poses are there, but from that one to the other.
The passage is what the dance is. Yeah.
So since you've made such an exhaustive study, I wonder, Alka, if you would like to also look at the Ramappa temple in Warangal and story of the rebirth of Perini.
Thank you. Thank you for that, Arshia. I will.
Thank you very much for an absolutely amazing and scintillating conversation. You know, these make my evenings for me.
Yeah. So I think if there is no other question, I would like to again thank Alka and all the people who have been with us. And I hope to carry all of you again for tomorrow when we have another genres, dance and film. So thank you so much to everybody and good night.
Thank you. Thank you, Ileana. Thank you.